a regional school in Philadelphia.
Okay.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You were talking about how we should contact admissions. Is there any way to do that other than email or number? Could you actually see them in person? Because it seems like anyone could just do it over email, and it seems like that they could just get, it's just another kid, trying to get his way, make a little relationship with me. It seemed like it would work better if you could actually meet them in person. Is there any way to do that, or is it kind of...
Yeah, you definitely want to try and meet them in person. Unfortunately, not all schools are open to that.
Yeah.
Particularly the larger and state schools, not always open, but you can try and call the office and say, I'd like to sit with an admissions counselor. Depending on where you are, they might send you to an alumni representative, which Abby was referring to earlier. But you definitely want to try and meet somebody in person if you can. If you're going to be on campus, they'll probably run an information session. If they do offer interviews, definitely take them up on the interview. Keep in mind that interview for most schools is not, whether I will get in or not. If you say something wrong, it's over. You're not getting in. It's not really the way it goes. It's really an information exchange. You're learning from them, and make sure you've got questions for them about the school too when you go into that tip.
Okay.
But they're also learning about you and whether you fit into the school. My years in admissions, most schools, by the way, admit more than 70% of the students that apply. So there's one stat for you.
That's cool.
There's not a lot of schools that admit fewer than half of their applicants. But keep in mind that students do kind of self-select where they're applying to, so that those numbers are a little skewed. But when you go to a school, they're trying to figure out: are you going to get in? Are you not going to get in? Or is this going to be a kid who's on the fence? And you've got to help make that decision as well. You need to ask that question, as I mentioned earlier. But also, they're trying to figure out. I always looked at it this way from admissions. If this student sitting in front of me is definitely going to get in based on the numbers, what about them might not be a good fit? Or in the other respect, looking at the numbers, this student probably is not a good fit for our school that way, but maybe there's something about them that would be a good fit. Let me see if I can figure out what that is. So if you kind of put yourself in their shoes, you can get a sense as to what you can do to improve your chances to getting into a school, and also improve your chances of understanding, is this the right place for me? But definitely try and get an in-person contact with somebody. Email is just a way you can have a conversation with them afterward. But try and meet with somebody in person if you can.
And Leslie, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I have one after you.
Okay. Well, I was just reviewing the common application process and all of that, and realizing how little space there is to write about extracurriculars. And so I was wondering, because a lot of schools say, go ahead, you can attach your resume if you want, but sometimes a lot of the speculation on it is that looks like you're, trying to sell yourself more than you should. So should you attach more to the back to, let them know about, your activities and extracurriculars, or should you just try and fit it into the space that's provided?
No, definitely. If you have the chance to provide more information, do it.
Okay.
More information, the better.
Good.
Yeah, I think it depends on also, what are you providing? You don't want to come off desperate, but if it's things about your activities, definitely provide that to them because they need to see that.
And I have a question too. What, in terms of visiting schools, do you recommend that students visit schools? I know there's a few different schools of thought. One is that they visit before and choose which schools they're going to apply to that way. And another is that they visit after they get in to choose where they're going. And how many should we visit and when?
Okay. Really good question. The number one influencer for students as to where they're going to enroll is the campus visit. But that also assumes that you also know where you want to apply to. So I really encourage students, if you can, to visit every school that you want to apply to make sure that's the place that you can see yourself at. So here's the downside if you don't do that. You don't visit a school and you get accepted to that one and none others, let's say worst case scenario. You've never been there. You go and visit the school and you go, this is not the place for me. Why did I even apply? It's such an influential part of the process when you actually visit the place. It's too important. Now, let's say you get admitted to more than one school. Most kids will. So you get more admitted to a bunch of schools. Yes, then you definitely go and you visit those schools. They'll probably have an admitted student event on campus in the spring. You want to go visit and check it out. They're probably going to roll out the red carpet. They're going to try and close the deal, if you will, and make sure that you're going to attend there. But that's the time where you spend even more time getting to know the students, getting to know the professors. and understanding the campus environment. The more you can spend on campus, the more time you can spend on campus, the better for you and also better for the school too. I know that's hard, particularly Leslie. You're looking out here on the East Coast to a lot of schools. That's going to be difficult, but you're in a very focused location there in D.C. It seems for a lot of your places. Definitely try and get there and visit both times. I just can't see a student applying to a school who's never been there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I have actually a lot of questions because I wrote down a bunch beforehand. So if you don't mind, I'm going to just keep asking. So what do you think, in your opinion, is the most common mistake high school seniors make when applying to college?
Well, probably not taking enough time researching it. And when I say research, I don't mean Jack's big book that he's got there. I mean that, but also online and asking students and spending more time on campus getting to know it. I think just not researching it enough. A lot of students will transfer, and that's not the worst thing in the world. I know, Jack, you're joking with me there about that earlier, but it's not the worst thing in the world, but it will disrupt the whole process. It means something wasn't quite right, whether it was the program. Now, you may change your mind in majors and all that, and the school you're at might not have what you're looking for. That certainly is understandable, because I can't imagine why any of you your age, how you could possibly know what you want to do the rest of your life. I'm still trying to figure that out. Yeah. Don't tell my wife, though. The idea that you may transfer because of financial reasons or because things that maybe are out of your control, but you don't want to have to transfer because, wow, that just wasn't the right fit school. I wish I would have known this ahead of time.
Well, what if it's like part of the, if you have a plan, like, for example, if I were to go to my safety school, but I still wanted to go to my number one choice and I could transfer there, if that was part of my plan, then couldn't it still be like a smooth transition because I'm kind of planning it along the way?
You definitely could do that, keeping in mind that you're going to create such tremendous friendships in the first year, 2 years, that transferring, it's going to be difficult. You're moving, basically. Yeah. You'll keep those friendships, but those are some of the worst case scenarios, is that you're going to have to transfer for one reason or the next, but you've built up some great friendships there. You might not want to do that. But again, lots of people do it. I think what you're trying to do in the admissions process right now, in the selection process, is find the best fit school so you can avoid doing that if possible.
Okay, and you were talking about choosing what we want to do and how it's hard to tell. On that train of thought, what do you think about specialized schools like, for instance, Emerson, which is a communication school? Is it too early to choose, or should students only apply there if they're positive? What do you think of those kind of schools?
Wow, that's a tough one. I mean, if you're really dead set, you know what you want to do, that might be the place to go. I think what college is really good at is preparing you to think critically and to communicate well. And the specific skills that you're going to have in your job, particularly out of college, probably are going to be somewhat different from what you're getting when you're in college, just because of technology advancements, depending on what you're going into. But your job is going to train you for the actual work, but what colleges will do is train you to think differently, to think critically, and to communicate better than you've ever done before. That you probably are more likely to get at a liberal arts school with a liberal education. But that's one train of thought. I'm a big believer of a liberal education. That doesn't mean a small school. That could be a large state school with a good liberal arts program. But a specialized school, only go in that direction if you know that's what you want to do and you want to get in and out and in that career, and you're pretty sure you're not going to see yourself changing over the period of time.
Okay, yeah. And what do you think of the electronic applications? And is there any certain tactic you'd recommend when applying online?
There's really no special tactic that you should take. Most schools have gone to an electronic application. Many have gone to a common application, but most have already put up an electronic application. I don't think you have a preferred state in admissions if you apply online versus applying via paper. But I think most students now, in fact, many schools only accept the online application. They don't provide a paper app. As far as any strategy, make sure you fill it out completely. Make sure you send in any addendums that you think you need to send in. Make sure you follow the requirements. They're going to ask you for a certain number of recommendations, transcripts, essays you may or may not be able to complete online. Make sure you fill all that out and make sure you know that you've completed the application to its fullest. And when it comes to the application process, you also need to check with your guidance office because they're going to be part of the process too. When you get back to school, if they haven't already told you, they're going to tell you what their deadline is, when they need to see your application so that they can package it and process it, if it's a paper application, or when do you need a transcript and recommendation sent to the school. You're responsible for running that process, not your parents, not the guidance office. That's your responsibility, so you need to know what those deadlines are.
Okay.
And keep in mind, if you're going to apply early admission, those are different dates than regular admission.
What about kids who don't have necessarily guidance counselors or good guidance counselors? Like, I know there's public schools here